Hello and welcome to Turning Point Tactics, the competitive Kill Team 40k podcast and YouTube channel focused on giving you the strategies and tactics to seize initiative every turning point. I'm your host Ryan and I'm joined by the only knob you want to see across the table at Christmas. No, it's not a Commando player, everyone hates them. It's Connor. How are you doing this evening, Connor?
I'm good, thanks, Ryan. And joke's on you because I've asked for Chaos Cults for Christmas, so let's see what Santa gives me. Maybe you don't see me.
I asked for Chaos Cults and no friends.
No one to play with.
It's amazing how well those two things go together. But maybe that'll be solved soon in the next Balanced States, which is hopefully coming up. We are doing a little bit of chicken and egg here with Games Workshop, because we know that as soon as we release any content about the Balanced Data Slate, a tier list, threat guides, it will be immediately changed by the Balanced Data Slate. So we're just holding out, making sure that they show their hand first before we waste our time on the content. So we'll have to wait and see. And as a quick reminder for everyone listening at home, if you really want to give us a helping hand, if you share this content amongst your gaming buddies, make sure that they know about it and they can hopefully get some tips and tricks as well. That'd be really useful. And if you are enjoying it, hitting a like, subscribe, helps out a bunch. And make sure to drop a comment if you have any questions about the show or something you want to get answered. All right, Connor. So what do you want to talk about this week?
Well, you've been extremely busy. In fact, you went to Atlanta recently. Did you play any Kill Team when you went to Atlanta?
Just one or two games, like just a little bit, dip my toe. Maybe hit like a 7 turning point game, something like that. Just
okay.
Just a little casual.
Turning point 5. What's turning point 7?
It was a great game with Keegan from Spain, and basically in the top 8 you couldn't have a draw was the outcome. So the only way to determine a winner was to keep playing turning points where it became who could hold objectives or the most objectives in of each turning point. And yeah, it just went on and on because we finished turning point 4 and managed to draw against Commandos, which I was like really chuffed about because that to me was quite a big success. I was like, I'm playing loot open board Commandos and I managed to get a draw. I'm like, this is awesome. And it's like, now I just play another turning point. And I was like, oh my God. And I got another draw. It's like, what do we do now? Play another turning point.
Another turning point. Another turning point.
It's too many turning points. But yeah, so it was great fun. Like the actual game itself was awesome because Keegan's just a great dude. And yeah, we had loads and loads of fun doing it. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, it was, overall, it was a pretty awesome experience, I think. So, I got to meet a whole bunch of cool people from across the community, which you didn't think that you would normally do, So, people like from the last edition who I've met online, like Shane from Command Point. It was awesome meeting him in person, actually getting to play a game. Mateusz from Poland, I got to play for the first time, which again was awesome. Wallace from Spain. Like all these people, right? Like, and even like the Garrett, I can just name every single opponent now, but like every single opponent I've played with, you heard about them on the scene or you've seen them in Discord or something like that, and it was so cool to put those names to faces and faces to names, or to usernames, I guess, and actually sort of like connect them. And it was that part of it was absolutely awesome. I did quite a lot of good boozing with Liam from Down Under and Chris and Mateusz. So we had good fun. Like from the social side of it, it was pretty awesome, I think.
Hardcore drinking countries there, Poland, Australia. I think
that was the real
we're notoriously good as Brits, but I don't think we're world championship drinkers like some of those other countries.
Oh, I don't know, man. I don't know. We were holding our own, Chris and I. So it was funny.
Oh, you brought Chris? Oh, thank God! Yeah, that's why he turned up.
It's like, like so before Chris went out, he'd taken like a year off drinking, and I'm like, oh no, sweet, let's go. And then after a week with me, he's now back on the booze. So I don't know if I'm a bad influence, but the Navy and me came out. So yeah, it was good fun though. It was really good fun, and I reckon that would be a much more interesting world championship in future. We're talking about how you could try and play with some sort of drinking game involved.
Every time you lose a model, you take a drink. Yeah. So play Colts if you want, but
yeah, exactly. Dangerous. And I think if you mutate, that should also count. You're taking a model the other one on. You can drink on that one as well. Yeah. But yeah, so it was good fun, and I mean, that sort of stuff was absolutely epic, which is really, really cool.
So I'm intrigued because I remember in the car ride down, we were talking. You didn't want to degrade yourself and therefore degrade your wins by taking Commandos and Colts to the World Championships. I think those were your actual words. I'm not paraphrasing. So who did you bring? Who did you take with you?
Obviously, I went Commandos. I went with Star Striders, and I had a blast with them, to be fair. I think looking back at so Colts wasn't one that I was really tracking like that closely, if that makes sense. But Commandos, everyone was tracking, right? Like, everyone knew Commandos were a problem. But Colts, I was like, yeah, they seem really strong, but no one was really playing them. But it was just one of those maybe it's a thing, maybe it's not. So I was more worried about your sort of your Commandos, your Breachers, and those sort of teams. But I think Star Stride did me well. Like, they are so much fun to play. I think they've got generically quite a good matchup into most teams. It just happens that they have a pretty terrible matchup into Commandos, and I think they have a not so good matchup into Colts. Not that it really mattered in the end, so didn't get to play them. So I just played against Commandos in that brick wall. But yeah, like, it was like, I think if I was to, and this is like the point though, right? It's like, at the top tables, you need to choose a team that you think is actually going to win. And going into it, I didn't think I was going to win the tournament, but I did want to have a lot of fun. And I was hoping maybe I'd be able to sneak into the top 8. And I quite literally just about snuck into the top 8. So I'm pretty happy with it.
Stretch goal achieved.
Yeah, exactly. I got my 50% win rate, and I hope, like, I genuinely hope that I gave all my opponents a good game. I think I made them work for their wins, at least. Maybe not so much against Wallace in ITD against Commandos and Capture, because that was just brutal. I still haven't figured out how you win that game, but I will keep trying to figure that out, and maybe I'll get there one day. But
I'm definitely intrigued, because in the car, when we were talking about how you didn't want to debase yourself and take command.
You need to stop going so hard into this.
Again, your words, not mine.
No, you can't put words in my mouth.
And but you definitely identified Commandos were going to be out there and they were going to be strong, and you thought about bringing Legionary, and you didn't at the end. You went Star Striders. Talk us through that. What was that about?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things I don't like about Legionary is they can be kind of swingy, and it sounds odd, right? Like, most of them have 5 attacks, most of them hit on 3s and whatever, that sort of stuff. But there's only so many times that you can roll 3 1s on a plasma attack and just realise that it's a bit hurtful. And so, like, one of the things that I'd say about elites in general, which is, I mean, you rolling bad on your dice is one problem, but there's also the other problem, which is elites are far more susceptible to your opponent rolling hot as well. And that was one of the things that I found really difficult with elite teams, is if your opponent just rolls like 4 6s, you just go, well, that's that then, isn't it? I guess there's nothing I can do. And like, it came up in my game against Shane, where I fired off one of my orbital bombards, whatever, and I think I got like 4 crits on 4 and just like lethal 5, but like it was like 5 5 4, 6 6, or maybe it was 3 crits, whatever. Either way, he only saved 1 to like 15 damage and just like nuked him off the board. And like that kind of thing, you just can't predict against. So that's the sort of problem set I think elites have. So I didn't want to take him for that reason. And I also thought Star Striders would be more fun, which I think they were. Like, I really enjoy playing them, and I wonder when Commanders are outside the meta, maybe it'll be better off. And also, I thought it'd be more elites. I don't want to be the person, because what I thought there would be more elites, as in like just generically more legionaries, because they play well into Commandos. And they play well into like most teams. And I thought there'd also be more Inquisition. There's only 2. And I thought there'd be more, as a result of there being more legionaries, and commandos, maybe more or less commandos. I thought there'd be more Hearthkin, but there wasn't. So I sort of meta gained that completely wrong, I guess, which is part of it, right? So
triple bluffed yourself.
Yeah, you got to turn up with the right team, and for the top 8, I don't think it was the right team. But that being said, that was a decision and a choice by me, and I think there was games which I could have won in the top 8 had I played it better, and therefore my final placement within that top 8 is down to me, not the team. So even though I'd had a difficult time playing against Commandos, I played against Camille from Poland with his breaches, and I lost that game. And I think that's probably one of the ones that I should have won. I think that's a favourable matchup for Star Striders. And therefore, by losing that game, I dropped into the 7th or 8th bracket rather than being in the 5th or 6th potentially. So even then, I would have been playing Commandos afterwards. But so that's kind of the bits that I think I've taken away from it anyway. So
it just looked like such a fun environment, and I remember staying up with the Discord that even Games Workshop put up a live. It wasn't quite live, but a live tournament tracker, and some of the Spanish guys were live streaming some of the games. It was just a really cool environment. I hope sort of sets the scene and whets the appetite to have more of these in the future, and more live streaming and more, because a lot of it was obviously leaning towards Big Daddy 40k, which no one cares about. Let's face that. And
it is objectively a bad game, right? They don't realise it yet, but when they come play Guilty, they'll go, "Oh, this is a lot better."
I could play one game and have 2 hours of free time left to go around the canteen. All right, interesting.
Well, ironically, we didn't, because for some reason we played 4-hour rounds,
7 rounds.
The longest game was 6 hours. It was a Turning Point 7 one, but oh man. So I think, to be fair, most of my games were under 3 hours. I think my first game was just over 3. I was playing a guy called True, and he was running a vet guard, and he sort of turned up to the table and said he'd been traveling, I think, all morning. So he was like, I'm very tired. So do you mind if we sort of play a slightly slower game? And I was like, absolutely not. I've been traveling all night. You've been traveling all morning. I'm a bit jet lagged. I don't care. We've got 4 hours. There is no way we're not going to finish this game in time. And I think that was one of the longer games. And then obviously until I had hit the final Turning Point 7, which I think, again, we finished the first however many turning points it was in a somewhat reasonable amount of time. And then it just went on. Because it's casino lighting, right? It's all bright lights. You have no concept of time. So you're just in there what is happening?
In my head, it's like snooker, and there's just a big green board, and only one player is allowed up at the time. And if you want to move a model, you have to ask a judge to come over.
Someone comes in with white gloves and moves him around and make sure it's in the right position. This is what you're after. Yeah, it was it was very, very precise. And to be fair, and no one wants to make a mistake in deployment or anything like that. And people are double checking and triple checking rules because, and that is part of it, right? You're playing at the highest level. And the amount of times where you go to someone, oh, this is the weapon profile, and they go, oh, right, is it? And you go, you know what? Let me just double check. Because normally I'll just go, yeah, sure it is. And then you go to your rulebook and you go, no, it definitely is, right? But you just don't want to get it wrong. And there's stuff that I learned. So, for instance, on the Octarius, there's 2 hatches on top of it. Didn't realise that the other one was a hatch. Normally everyone just thinks it's the little circular one. There's a little square grate as well. You can also go through that. That caught me out once. Hopefully you'll never catch me out again. But yeah, that was something else I learned. So that was pretty awesome.
So that was a good fun tournament, but it's just the World Championship. Obviously, we also had the most important tournament of the year as well recently. Turning Point Tactics.
Our tournament. Me.
And,
it's all about us. It's all about us.
all about you. You were actually TOing for once, so you got to see it from the other side. How did you find that?
Yeah, it was really interesting actually, and I thought I might hate it, because being a player, pretty much. Well, I've never TO'd before, right? So I've only ever just turned up to events and just had fun. And I was like, am I going to be have that missing out feeling? But actually, I quite enjoyed it. It was really rewarding going there and engaging with so much of the community and also like seeing how much the community came out to support, which was like just so unbelievably cool. It was the largest UK event in London. Largest UK event outside of Warhammer Fest, right? So that sold 118. That's an official GW event, so I was never going to beat that. But yeah, so we sold 64 tickets and 58 people turned up, I think, in the end on day one, which is really awesome. So that was like, the largest event that we'd had, which is pretty cool, right? So the and what we tried to do during the event was make it to cater for as many people as possible, because, this is partly because people like Jason have been, slowly whispering in my ear over the past few months, but like we wanted to make sure that it was equally beneficial and fun for the casual player as it is for the competitive player, right? So that was the idea of it, and I'm hoping that everyone went away with that sort of feeling. So it was really good to do, and I personally had a lot of fun being a TO and making sure that everything ran to time, which was pretty good. But you also had some personal success, Connor, right? Because, and I don't really understand what this is, but you did some hobby.
Yeah, I think
Am I saying it right? Am I saying it right? Hobby.
That's the word. We'll get you doing it one day. It'll happen.
And you came fourth in the best painted, right? Which
in the second day.
On the second day, yeah. So, but I'm going to say, like, the painting competition was absolutely insane.
I think that's what happens when you get like all the community. We had communities from north, south, east, west UK, and I'm pretty sure some international as well. I definitely know of one French guy that turned up. There might have been some more, but I guess that's what happens if you get all these communities and then go, show us your best painted. I mean, we've seen Nottingham. They do some phenomenal stuff.
It's incredible. It's a world of their own up there. And then, like London came out in force, but London didn't win best painted. London did not win best painted.
Unfortunately, Russ from GFN Gaming did. We're not going to.
He came down with his aggressive northern painting style.
Aggressive northern painting.
And absolutely crushed it.
They were nice, weren't they?
He didn't just have a 1-tier display base. He went above and beyond. He had a 2-tier display base for his word bearers, I think, right? It was the Chaos Legion.
Yes.
And like they're so cool. Each model in the team is like a little, little story, little vignette. Like it has its own unique moment
sure
to it.
He had 20 models as well, like a full roster.
Yeah,
all of them awesome.
Yeah, and they just looked incredible, and the display base was incredible. I think my favorite. Well, I looked at a bunch of them, but I think the favorite was the Shrive Talon. And he's just like executing a guy, and then just staring at someone else, like just so menacing.
There was one. I don't know if it was a Shrive Talon, but it looked like they were preparing their grizzly mark at the same time as executing them.
That is exactly it. It is the most grisly of grisly marks. But yeah, it was really, really awesome. But so you did hobby, right? And what did you do?
Yeah, afterwards it dawned on me that I made the most hated models ever, because not only am I taking a Void Dancer kill team, and nobody likes Void Dancers, they're also Tau, and I don't know why, but everyone hates Tau too. So.
It's because of the Pathfinders, man. Yeah. You combine the two things.
The most offensive kill team in the world. But yeah, they were cool. They were close combat Tau, so far side Tau. With swords, and also incredibly fragile. I don't think they'll ever see board time again because they kept falling to bits, but it was fun.
Oh my god, they are and he's saying fragile, right? So I thought I'd help him pack his team the day before the tournament.
Don't let Ryan pack your Ming vases.
It was so I put the model in between the two bits of foam in like a foam storage tray, and then let the foam spring back slowly, let the pressure come off, whatever, and that force of foam pushing against the model broke off both arms. And I was like,
when you handed me the box, I thought you were handing me some Lego, and he said, "No, that's your kill team." Oh, thanks for that. Cheers.
But luckily, you were really good about it, and you weren't at all angry. And, you didn't hold it against me or blame me about it at all. So that was really, really good of you.
Such a
I reckon that's our at least 2 minutes creative hobby because I feel dirty when I talk about it. So we need to move on swiftly, otherwise people might think that we're not a competitive kill team channel anymore, and we're some filthy hobbyers. So yeah, there is, I guess, one little bit of news to come out of the tournament, and is that we are planning to do another one, right? Which is hopefully going to be bigger and better, because I think, unfortunately, the current title of the biggest independent kill team event is going to be taken away from us next weekend by Jason at Sanctuary,
Sneaky
going
get.
up to 64 player. Yeah, I mean, he is
Sneaky
like
get.
it. I've seen it, like everything that I was doing. He was like, "I'm going to one up you on this. I'm going to one up you on this." Like it was like I got out, like, because he brought chocolate. I brought chocolate. He's going to be like, "I'm going to bring better chocolate." You know, like if it's biscuits, he's going to go for Fox's biscuits, right? Like he's that kind of guy. He's going to beat me in every aspect. So he's immediately going up to 64 players, and he's got like a waiting list and everything. So if they all turn up, he's going to overtake us straight away. So hopefully everyone does. That'd be really, really awesome.
There'll be
And
a
that
full
then
mod
means
to turn up. It's going to be amazing.
Oh yeah, for sure. And there's so many little things planned, which I think is really, really cool. And so it's gonna be cool to see that happen. Unfortunately, I can't be there for the start of the day, so I'm gonna have to turn up at the end, which means I've had to give my place to someone else. But which is good because it needs to be 64 players, so that's a good outcome. But anyway, what it means is obviously we have to then beat that event. So we're gonna try and do that in June. I'm hoping by then golden tickets and that sort of stuff will be announced. And so we're looking for the last weekend in June. Date and time subjects change, but that's the idea. And we're going to try and host it in Nottingham. And the reason for that is really because Nottingham has a direct train to London. It has a direct train to Manchester. It has like various transport links to the Notts region communities. So in the UK, it is the closest like hub for everyone, for all the major communities, because most people can get to London, then they get from London to Notts or whatever, and they don't want to go for like another train after that. So I'm hoping for everyone in the UK, it's like 2 stops on a train kind of thing, or 2 changes, whatever. And then for people coming outside, they can fly into London and then go up as well. So that's the idea of it. And maybe if you're a bit of a, Warhammer, enthusiast, you might want to go and see the Games Workshop studio itself and go have a look around Warhammer World. And that's obviously in Nottingham. So it lets people do all those sorts of things at the same time. So last weekend in June is what we're hoping for. I need to get a venue sorted and all that sort of stuff. But it's significantly cheaper than London for hotels. It's significantly cheaper for transport. And then hopefully we'll go for 128 players is the plan. That's what we're going to go for. Audacious. It won't be as big as LVO this year because that's going to be absolutely massive. I think they're up 150 already. But it will be the biggest UK tournament if we can sell out, which I'm hoping we will, but we'll see. So save the date, last weekend in June, thereabouts, and Nottingham is the plan. Cheap hotels, easy transport, turn up for 1 day, turn up for 2 days, where it's going to be. That's what we'll go for. Okay. We've already sort of touched on the balanced data slate. If people are wondering why it's been a little bit dry on content recently, it's because we are genuinely waiting for the balanced data slate, which Warcom has indicated to be the 14th of December. But as we've said, we don't want to release a whole bunch of stuff on the 13th.
We know
of December.
that it's actually going to be released as soon as we drop our guide. That's when the data slate is.
It's going to happen, right? It's going to happen. Everyone's already bullying me online to be like, just release it now, Ryan, so we can get it, right? Because as soon as you release yours, it will be within 5 minutes, right? Like within 5 minutes, it will be out, and it will just be Elliot just laughing in the background. You'd be like, yeah, this is what you want. This is what you get. But yeah, so I refuse to cave to Kill Team's most handsome man, first. So he's going to have to do it. It's probably not him. It's probably the Warcom team, but he can't be the most handsome and get his way with the content creators as well. So someone's gonna have to break first. But yeah, so we're planning to do a threat guide for all the factions, which will be hopefully really useful for people, particularly if you're like new to the game or you'll have a quick refresh, and then also a tier list because people want to know what people are thinking is good and bad. And I'm not gonna lie, it'll be a hot take because there'll probably be a whole bunch of stuff that is hidden in the background. Like I think Vet Guard's a sleeper faction at the moment, all that sort of stuff. But we'll have a look and see, right? Because there might be some buffs that are coming out and might completely shake up the meta. Who knows? All right, Connor, we do have a whole bunch of stuff to get through in this episode because we have a bunch of patron priority questions that need answering. But if people are listening at home and they think to themselves, hey, I really want to support the podcast, we want to help you guys out, is there any way that they could go about doing that?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. So first of all, you should subscribe, join our Patreon. It'll cost you as little as £3 a month, and that'll get you early access to all of our videos, as well as some exclusive Patreon-only content. It'll also give you access to our Patreon Discord channel, which is just growing and growing now. It's absolutely awesome. I love the community that's on there. We've got hobby on there. We've got memes on there. We've got guides not even by us now. The community is so large. Like if you ask a question in some of those channels, we've got so many members of the community that will immediately jump in there and answer your question. In fact, it's getting so big, Ryan, isn't it? I think it might be that if you want to get Ryan's attention when he's on the Discord, if you do an @ symbol, an @ Ryan, it'll go straight to him because there's a lot of notifications in there coming through.
Please do, right? Because like I'm looking at all of these various things and all filling up with like people just talking to each other, and I'm scrolling through trying to find the bits, and every now and then I catch up and go, oh yeah, I need to answer that. But if you have a question that you want me to answer, just at me, or submit a patron priority question because I'll go answer live on the show. So those are two options. But please feel free if you want my opinion on something, just at me or Connor in the Discord.
The other way you could do it is just by buying models. So if you buy using our affiliate link, we've got affiliate links with both Element Games and Noble Knight Games. Noble Knight's for the US and Element Games is for the UK. If you purchase your models through those affiliate links, then that's another way to support the podcast. The other thing you can do is like and subscribe on our YouTube video, share it with all your friends, and even just watch till the end. So you don't even have to watch it yourself. Go out and walk the dog, but just leave it playing in the background.
Please do the whole playlist. Leave it on play.
That'll help. Then we've also got the link tree going, which has got useful tools and links to everything that you could possibly need. We've got links to the Kill Team calculator. That's not ours, by the way. That's I've forgotten the name of the guy that made that, but it's such a useful tool. Who made that?
Jacob.
Jacob, of course, yeah.
Jacob,
such a good tool. You just put in the details of the mass that you want, and it'll quickly give you the odds of that attack succeeding or that defense succeeding. We've also got things like our map guides on the link tree, all sorts on there, and that'll be in the description below if you're watching on YouTube. But we already discussed some patron priority questions, and I learnt a good phrase from Nick Collins earlier. We're not here to fuck spiders, Ryan. Should we crack on?
I'm not sure. At least we're more than 2 minutes in.
I think I used that right. My new favourite phrase.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's. I guess let's get straight into it. So, do you have the first question, Connor?
Absolutely. How do you beat legionaries with intercession on ITD?
So this was actually I've like summarized this question, I think, into its like core question, because there was a whole bunch of logic and justification going into it. But I've tried to take this. So the first thing I'm going to say about this is it is a really tough matchup, right? And it does favor legionary, in my opinion, right? So I think generically, I think this matchup is legionary's matchup to lose rather than intercessions to win, right? And sort of the patron that was asking it talks about how they've already switched over to bolters. They're already trying to use the double tap method. They are already using lethal 5 and P1, which is like great equipment choices, right? Because particularly against Nurgle, if you're min damage 3, well, you don't really care about the like 4 damage buff, right? Because it just does nothing for you. And therefore, actually always activating that P1 is so useful. And you're going to be rolling 4 dice with 1 reroll, 5 dice looking for a single 5-up. You'll be really annoyed if you don't get P1. So you should be getting that AP1, which is really, really good for just forcing through regular damage. But they're already doing that, right? And so the question then is, right, so I'm doing all these things, but it's still not working for me. So what else can I do? And so I've got a few more like hints and tips other than just saying I'm really sorry, it's a tough matchup, and if your opponent's like a really good opponent, then it's always going to be hard. But hopefully this might be useful. So we'll see. So they've been generically trying to play Seek and Destroy, which I think isn't a bad shout. The only issue is that Legionary does kill you better than you kill them, and like you can get stuck in this situation where if your first activation doesn't succeed in killing the guard, then they're probably just going to shoot the person that came in the room and then run away, right? And so they can position in such a way, ignoring injury, they're going to move 9 inches back through a hatchway. You're not going to get that kill. You haven't got route. You're now a Marine down. Them like it's that's the game, right? And that can go so quickly. So there's potential you try and play a bit more positional, and like they are going to kill you. But like if you can try and balance your forces so that you swing the weight of your effort in the correct direction. And one of the guys on the Tony Boy Tactics team, Average Joe, raised this as an idea to me sort of like a few months back, actually. We're talking about a different team, but he talks about having a sort of a denied flank where you effectively just give up, right, on a certain flank, and go, I'm just not going to commit resources to that. And you're going to let them commit their, where it is, 2 Marines to a room that you don't care about, and then you're going to prioritize all 6 of your Marines to fight 4 of theirs. So that's another thing you can look for. And maybe that's playing central control, or, you know, I personally think center line, depending upon the map, is usually pretty good, because if you can get like a hatchway that's on the center line, you can control that. That pairs really nicely with a secure hatchway, so maybe you can force it in a certain direction. And then there's a chance that you can go for escort operative. I think if you do, and you're playing against a Seek and Destroy opponent, I'd be tempted to make your leader the escort operative. And I know that makes a huge, like, you know, oh, everyone's now trying to kill this guy. But if you can hold him back quite far, and with your other Marines block the routes to him, it then means that it's going to be, well, they're not going to kill him turn 1 because they just can't get the range through the hatches. They're highly likely to kill him turn 2. So now suddenly they're only ever getting 1 point on their headhunter if they have it, and you then have 2 turning points to get him to the other side of the board, which is quite achievable with a rapid Marine team, right? You can be moving 10 inches a turn. So that's something that I could say you might want to try and have a play with if you're going for that. But anyway, maybe just give security a go if you're finding that they're playing around your eliminate guards. One of the things that he was sort of talking about is the fact that when you're against a good opponent who understands eliminate guards well, they'll know that they shouldn't be standing on the objectives, right? But with an elite team, you can move onto the objective, capture it or loot it, then move so you're no longer on the objective, right? So turning point 2, there is no option for you to select an eliminate guard. And they can keep doing this. So you're now in a horrible situation where you go, right, what do I do now? And particularly with like Zinch teams, is they can be 4 APL, they can be making their mission actions like cost 2 with a Shrive Talon and that sort of stuff. So they've got ways to be really mean with it. So I think you can do the same though, right? So generically, I think they're going to be playing Seek and Destroy. I don't know why they wouldn't. You know, it kind of makes sense. So don't like learn the reciprocal, right? Give them the same problem, but the other way around. And try and like accept that point loss on TP2, potentially on primaries, because you should be going 3-3 really on TP1 unless it's like a weird map. But accept that point loss on TP1 on TP2, so that you can then move back and get it back TP3 and TP4, and really try focusing on just getting sufficient damage out on TP2 is probably what I say is really important, because you are a volume-based damage team and they are a burst-based damage team. So if you don't get the volume out, then they're just going to wipe you, and there's nothing you can do about it. So yeah, I'd try and kill those Marines early and then go back to scoring on TP3 and TP4. To achieve that you could potentially look at using your barricades like differently. So I would be almost tempted to like not put barricades on the objectives so that they have nowhere to hide, right? So now when your opponent is looking at it, so we got one of 2 ways. Either you put the barricade such that all your models can reach it from an open doorway on your side, moving in, or you just leave it so it's open. Because you do volume shooting really well. So if the room is completely empty, you can be stood at the doorway, open the doorway, and double shoot from the doorway. And if they're on the objective, they have to take the damage, or they're just not going to be on the objective, right? So it gives you that flexibility. But that's potentially one option to try and make it a little bit harder for them. I think that's probably the main bits of advice. There might have been something else, but let me know if you have questions back on that. It sounds like you're doing a lot of the right stuff already, which is tough because you're making the right equipment choices, you're making the right decisions, and it seems to start to be difficult. There's obviously one other bit that I probably should mention, which I think I mentioned in the in-session guide, but I'll just mention it again now. Like, you are a volume-based team, so if you're wasting mission actions to open door to then only get a move and one shot, that's difficult. So if you know you have to move into the room, you probably have to accept the fact that you need to be getting those doors open. And potentially, one of the ways to look at it is if you sit back 2.1 inches from the door, so you move up to the door, open it, and move back 2.1 inches so that you're obscured, so they can't shoot you, but you can move 7 inches, and effectively 5 inches into the room and shoot 2 inches into cover, then it makes it really hard for them to charge you or get in contact with the door to then hatchway fight you, but you can actually move all the way into the room and shoot them. Those are my only bits of advice. Anything you want to throw in, Connor, having seen it from the legionary perspective, maybe?
Yeah, I think that's just what you get for playing Intercession. Clearly there is no way to beat legionaries. They're objectively the cooler team. So suck it up. That's what I'm going to
yeah, well, I hope that's
it is tough. Like whenever we've played, it's a close game, isn't it? Almost a coin toss. Very similar sort of teams. Legionary's got an extra plasma on you. Some of them are quite tasty in combat as well. Difficult matchup.
And you don't win in melee. That's the other thing as well. Like, if you try and melee them, you just die because all their melee options are just better than yours.
Even the combat knife is better.
Yeah, like I don't exactly. Like, you get extra attack for some reason. So yeah, I don't really know if there's any better way of dealing with it. I think if you try those things though, that's giving you your best options. There's the security tac ops one. I'm a little bit 50-50 on. I do quite like seek and destroy. I like the fact that you can pick up points quite quickly if you get tabled. But maybe there is an option to play positional. But I think you do have to get those hatchways open, and you have to accept that they are going to kill a Marine in each activation, but you want to be killing a Marine in your activation, and it becomes a bit of a kind of weird initiative game. And you just have to avoid the double kills from the champion. Like, if they can charge you and fight you with the power fist and the Grizzly trophy, and then shoot someone else, like, that's just gross. So hopefully that was of some use. Do you have another question, Connor?
Well, I don't, but another patron does. Patron project question number 2, and apologies for pronunciation here. Can you start the Make Falochu Great Again campaign? It's a cool model, but it's too swingy to actually be useful. Can you remind us what the Falochu does?
This is the Corsair bird guy, right? Or the bird, particularly on the Corsair. And I'm all for making him better, right? Like, sorry, classic cough straight away. Yeah, so I'm all for making him better, right? Because it should be a useful model, but at the moment, it's just completely unpredictable.
Just for
right?
those that aren't sure, is it like you see a guy within 6 and you roll a dice, and on a 3-up, on a 6, isn't it? It's on a 6.
You wish it was that
+1 if they've activated. It's basically a 5 or a 6. Isn't
it? Roll a dice, right? On a 6, you treat them as if they're on engage order, right? Add 1 to the result if they're not in heavy cover. Add 1 to the result if they're not
activated or
not ready.
Yeah.
Yes, they've already activated. And add 1 to the result if they're within 6. So the best you can get if you fulfill all criteria is a 3-up, right? And then like Vet Guard just laughs and just goes, ignore all of it, away you go
Even
across the
heavy.
map,
Yeah,
even
okay.
heavy. And so, like for me, I feel like it should be like if you fulfill all 3 criteria, it should just be automatic, right? So if you can get all of them, it should be automatic. If you miss one of them, it should be a 2-up. If you miss another one, it should be a 3-up. And if you miss like if you have none of those things, it's a 4-up. That I think will be better, right? Because at least then it gives you some agency as the player to make it guaranteed if you select the right model and do the right things. But yeah, at the moment, it's just too swingy. So I'm all about the make Flaushu. I don't know how to speak. It's got a lot of accents in it as well. Great again campaign, but like make the birds great again. Yeah, I'm all for it, and hopefully it can turn a swingy model into something that actually is quite useful because it is completely random.
Is it? I mean, just they're going to play devil's advocate here. He is just a boring model, the boring like Corsair. I can't remember what they're called, guardsman or whatever. But he does have a hoopy rule. The hoopy rule being the Falauchu bird. So from that perspective, at least he's doing something. But it's just what he does is naff.
That's kind of it. It's like, well, if you like, you're almost going like, do I take a guy with a shuriken rifle just for more long range threats, or the bird guy who like could win you the game? Maybe win you the game, could also do absolutely nothing for you. You are right. He's got a power sword. He's got a shuriken pistol. And he's a standard Corsair. He's not bad, but
what if he kept it the same, but it was 0 AP? So it was just like a passive.
Well, there was no loss to it.
Yeah. It's just a passive.
Yeah, maybe
that's what he does.
Maybe that would work. But like, I just think that because even then, if you're making like this is my whole issue with Corsairs, right? This is why they win exactly 50% of their games, but don't win any tournaments. In my opinion, right? It's because in half of their games, their stuff will play off and they and they get the win, and the other half of the games, they'll roll their Flaushu dice, whatever, and it'll be a 1 or it'll be a 2, and it won't happen. And they'll roll their blaster and they'll get 1 hit and have no rerolls and have no reliability. This is another part of the team which just lacks reliability, which I think it shouldn't. Like it. So I like things like the cat, for instance, like the Breacher's cat, because it's not an instantaneous thing. You have reaction time to it, and you can somewhat predict it. I don't like things like the Vet Guard option because it's just there is no reaction; it just happens. But maybe, like, I like the idea of the criteria of if you can achieve all these criteria, it's better. But equally, if you can't achieve all these criteria, it is swingy. But like, if you can guarantee it, then maybe that'd be good. But yes, so we'll start that campaign. You heard it here first. We'll see if Kill Team's Most Handsome Man will solve it. We'll have to wait and see. Right, next question.
Right, I'm going to read the actual question, and I'm going to rephrase it. So, question 3. What team has the best looking models? But what I'm actually going to ask is, which team fetches the highest price when you ask them to get commission painted on? That's how you would understand what this question's saying.
Well, that would be if you wanted a full roster of Inquisition and all ancillary factions, then that would definitely get the most price. But so I personally, and this is a very, I guess, personal question, right? Like when it comes down to what you like. So everyone knows I'm a bit of an Imperium guy, so I've got a slight bias there. But I love the aesthetics of the Exaction Squad. I think the Exaction Squad look great. Like, I mean, it might be the fact they've got a Nelson as well, but you know, I just think they look awesome, right?
Very Judge Dredd.
Really, yeah, Judge Dredd vibes. Like the whole massive shotguns. You know, all the guys look really like the armor looks cool. The shield guys look cool. Castigate is a little bit creepy. You know, a little bit creepy. Gimp mask, maybe not needed, but you know, I just did a head swap and put on the I don't know how it's like Roman legionary, like the plume that goes up the middle, right, and in a straight line. So I got him with like a head plume, and he looks really cool again. Like Lee Smarter the same. I put a head plume on him, so all my special characters have got these like quite obvious head plumes, and they just look awesome, right? So they look really, really cool. And so for me, I think that they are the one that was the best looking team. And I might have a bit of personal bias because they're also, for me, painted like exceptionally well. Obviously, I didn't paint them, but because
you have to pick out the colours,
painted,
and that's the hardest bit, isn't it?
yeah, they're painted exceptionally well. But Mike MGS Miniatures painted them. So if you are looking for some commission painting to be done, I cannot recommend the guy enough. Like, he is so good. He's so communicative. Like, he's so quick. I don't know how he does it fast as well. It is insane. And yeah, like every time I look at them in like on the table in the box, I'm just like, these look epic. And so for me, I think that's probably the best looking models. I think to answer the question slightly more puristly, I would suggest that maybe, so the person who answered this, the patron, Chris, is like a fantastic kit basher, right? So anyone who went and saw his, well, he did the same as you, actually. He had Commando Pathfinders as like his team.
Okay, yeah.
So he like blended the two things again. The only thing he needs to do now is make them like Chaos Cultists at the same time, and that'll be it.
So who was he playing as? Was he playing as Pathfinders, but they were Commandos, or was he playing as Commandos?
Correct.
But okay,
yeah, he did it the gentlemanly way around. Which I never thought I'd say. I never thought I'd say that about Pathfinders, but there you go. But yeah, so I mean, he's an incredible kit basher, right? So I think, did they win Best Painted? They did, didn't they? They won Best Painted. Anyway, so good, like so good. And so I think for him, maybe something like Inquisitorial Agents could be the vibe, because that is a team with a lot of kit bash potential. Like each individual model is so unique and has so many different options, and then all the ancillary options have loads of options as well. So I think that could be a really cool team to have a good play with for kit bashing. But oh god, we talk about hobby again, Connor. What's happened?
How did we stumble into this?
Oh no, it's happened.
It's because they started giving out golden tickets for hobby. This
is it. This is it. They're infiltrating every part of the game, Connor. They're coming out of the walls. They're coming out of the goddamn walls. Any thoughts on it, Connor? Like, what do you think it's about? Because you obviously have a slightly different opinion.
I'm going to upset a lot of people now. A lot of people. I think the Commandos miniatures. I'm not saying don't go out there and start playing Commandos. Let's get that straight away. But the models themselves just look amazing, don't they? There's so much character going on. They look dead sneaky. Like, every single model is cool. Generically, they just look cool. Like, they've got goggles on. I love the fact that Burner Boy's got an oven mitt on. They just look brilliant.
Yeah, they got a lot of flavour.
Also, the Farstalker Kim Band, they look amazing.
Yeah,
they've got like a Western vibe going on. I was actually talking to Russ about this. The only thing they're missing is a Crutox. But why don't we just, we're talking, we need to get a wagon going. A Crutox powered wagon with like.
Could that be the buff that they need? Like,
maybe, yeah.
Like the cult agents, like replace two of your guys, get a Crutox instead, and make it an absolute elite beater. Just like pull Intercessor's arms off.
And go back to like some of the other teams like Warp Coven and whatnot, where like it'll cost 4 models or something. I don't know how good it'll be, but you know what I mean, where like it'll take away a certain amount from the pool.
So maybe it'll take it every time, but you're like tempted in certain matchups.
Yeah.
That could be cool. Like, they won't do it though, because it's not in the part of the box solution. So
tricky. Yeah.
Yeah, which is a shame. But
White Dwarf, get on that, please.
All right, can I just have an entire team of Crutoxes? I'm sold. Custodies kit bash option? Question mark. Right. Anyway, that is enough hobby.
How have we not? Right, no. How have we not discussed the Night Lord sneak peek? Those models look insane. They are.
Yeah, it's interesting. So cool. That the community is like really divided on those models.
Really?
Yeah, like a lot of people love them. I think they look pretty cool. I mean, also, have you been on the Discord recently? Looked in the Legionary chat.
Ben's.
The banner guy.
Yeah.
Oh man, he's so cool. Ben from Battle Brothers Tabletop is busy making light laws ahead of time, which I think is very impressive. I mean, yeah, they are great looking models, but some people apparently don't like them that much. So I don't know. Like, we'll see. Like, I think I think they'll depend on their rules. I think Kill Team's a game you play, and most people pick teams based on rules. And if they've got really
I've
cool
been
rules,
excited before. I'm, Kazakin. I'm looking at you.
mm.
I won't be hurt again. You're right.
I'm not ready to be hurt again. Master Usual will empathise because he's in the same place with Kazakin. He's like he feels very, very passionate about it. We're going to start like a Kazakin support team, like for just £3 a month. You can help Kazakin get the rules that they deserve.
You can adopt a Kazakin.
You can adopt a Kazakin trooper. Why is he hit on fours?
£3 a month, you can send them to training camp to get the
maybe they'll be able to get. For just 3 EP, you can increase their ballistic skill by 1. Right, so okay, that must be enough hobby talk.
Okay,
right?
Nip the hobby.
We're not going to talk hobby again tonight, right? Never again. Right, let's move on to the next question. Otherwise, we'll get stuck on this.
Any tips for players who can only assemble 1 model a week? And sorry about it, but can only play 1 game in a week.
Oh God, yeah, no more hobby chat. Right, yes. Any tips for players who can only get 1 game in a week? And so the context of this is they can't play on TTS, don't have the time, whatever, or willpower like to beat up the computer. Which I do get. It is a different game on TTS. It is a different game. Interestingly, like this slight tangent, but I felt like the World Championships played more like a TTS tournament than the like a regular tournament because
you flipped a table.
Accidentally click the flip table button and all the models go everywhere. No, they did have like really like where the table joints were, like it was right where your knee would go, and like a few times I'd knock the table. I was like, oh my God, please don't knock everything over. Really awkward. Anyway, right, yeah. So if TTS is off the cards, what do you do? So the first thing I'd say is, make the game that you do play like really count. And the way you do that is obviously by playing Turning Point 5, which is what we're branding the debrief now of a game. And you analyze the match, right? Don't actually play Turning Point 5, unless you're the world champs and play 7 of them. But like analyze the match, right? And really try and have like a objective view on how the game went. And even if you won, do the same thing, right? Because a lot of times people win, they go, yeah, won that game, therefore I must have played perfectly, and I'm going to move on. And I think you want to have like 2 stages of like of analysis. So you have like a hot wash up, which is like immediately as soon as you finish the game, ask your opponent, get your gut feelings, maybe take some notes and be like, like what do we think went right? What do we think went wrong? And it might be things like someone says, oh, I was really unlucky to not kill this model at this time doing this thing. Or whatever it's going to be, right? Like capture your initial gut feelings. Ask your opponent, how did they think it went? What went well? What didn't go well? What could have been better next time? That sort of thing, right? So capture that data straight away, and then do like a cold wash up where you test those assumptions. So take it away and look at the maths, right? So like, let's say you thought you were unlucky not getting a kill at this certain time. Well, go run it through the calculator and figure out what the percentage chance was. Like, is that a valid assumption? Were you diced, or were you actually taking odds on a 40%? I don't know, whatever it's going to be. To try to make it a bit more objective in that sense. And then go through the sort of the debrief process, which we talked about before, and I'll just run through it again. But like, what you want to try and analyze, or what you want to get to at the end of a debrief process is the root cause. And the reason why you want to get to the root cause is because you want to identify what really went wrong, so you can then give a correct fix for next time. So you can also do this for games you win, right? Like I think often it's easy to say, oh, I'll do it for the games I lose because I've lost this game and this was the reason why. But also do it for the games you win and go, I won this game, and what was the decision or the reason why I won this game in this instance? And then you can ask yourself a sort of the question of, well, what if that hadn't happened, and how would I secure another win in future had my opponent denied me that opportunity, right? So try your hardest to do that, because I think a lot of people do the hot wash up. They do it right there and then, and they don't do the cold one. And your emotions are still in the game, right? Like, so you're still feeling the good luck or the bad luck and whatever. But here's another quote: like, the dice don't care for emotions, right? So the odds were always the odds, and you just have to try and look at it in that objective way. So that's the first bit of advice that I think is potentially useful, right? So like doing that analysis, doing that process, where you can go. The next thing I'd say is, where possible. So if you're at a club, right, and you're playing, and they have lots of different teams. So I'm really blessed. We've got like, I don't know, 60 players in our group now, and so almost every faction is represented, right? But where possible, ensure you play different teams, play different maps, play different missions, and mix up, play different players where you can, right? So if you only get one game a week, go down to your club. If you played the same person 3 nights in a row, or like 3 weeks in a row, be like, hey, like, I'd love to play you again, but instead, can I play someone else because I want to get exposure to a different team? So do that. Like, if you keep turning up and you keep playing Octarius, well, then switch it up. Play some Chalnath, play some Nachman, play ITD, whatever, right? Like, constantly change your gaming area so it's giving you new challenges and all that sort of stuff. And make sure you go through each mission, right? So it might be you just have to be quite like prepared with it, and you just go, all right, this week I'm going to play loot, this week I'm going to play whatever, and try and do that where you can. Finally, there's maybe one more after this, but so the next thing I'd say is you can do like a psychological prep, not psychological prep, educational prep, whatever, right? So you can read other teams' rules, and you have like a head game, right? So if you have like a lunch break, you can quickly go, all right, well, I don't know, let's say I play Legionary and I'm going to play against today Commandos, right? Then you just go through your head and go, well, what equipment would I take? What would my roster be? What options am I going to do? And like, think about the missions and go, if it was this mission, what would I take? If it was this mission, what would I take? And try to like formulate a game plan in your head with your team as to what you'd run into that opposing team, and then read their rules and go, right, so with this knowledge of how I would intend to play the game, what could they do that's going to then break that? Like, how could they do something that's going to interrupt or make it not work? And if you can do that, I think that's a really useful way of analysing it. And also at the same time concurrently learning the opponent's teams, because you need to learn what everyone else does, because that's where you get gotchas or you don't necessarily understand and you get caught out. So get familiar with those other teams by reading their rules and then understanding exactly how they're going to shut you down, and try and choose a different team every time, right? Because that's also really useful. And then finally, I'd say if you can, like, try to play faster, like, and see if you can get in that gaming evening that you have 2 games rather than 1. Because quite often you might have like 3 hours to play a game, and maybe you can like pre-set up a board that someone has, or someone can turn up a little bit earlier and set a board up, and then you can like just get straight into it and just play back to back and just reverse, right? And let's say that you want to tackle on the first game, like deliberately make yourself defender on game 2, right? Like instantly reverse that scenario so that you're playing a subtly different game, and see if you can learn from those mistakes straight away. And that might be a really quick way of doing it. And if you just re-rack and just go again, then that's usually quite quick, rather than trying to play in a front of the game. So if you can do that, that'd be again, like, that doubles your exposure straight away, right? So those are my main tips. Is there anything that you think you want to add in, Connor, on that?
I think there's something to be said about just setting up half a board and then putting it against a mirror and then playing a game against yourself. But obviously, I'm joking with that. But what's your opinion of actually?
Well, they're all the same dice as well.
Yeah, the same models, these identical movements. It's bizarre. What is your actual thought process, though? Like, seriously, on having a game against yourself, and almost like you assemble both sides, and then you like play your moves, and you move around and you play as the opponent, and think about it that way. Is there any value or benefit there?
I mean, there's potentially, right? Like you'll learn their team's rules and that sort of stuff. But I think there's a risk where you get like a little bit stagnant, where you're only ever seeing it through your own perspective, right? And quite often it's when people,
no gotchas, no surprises.
yeah, like people play something because you're essentially learning what you already know, right? Because you're playing against yourself with a team that you know, and you know their rules and that sort of stuff, which can be good, right? To enforce learning and understand where you're at and make sure that you're not going too far off, whatever. But equally, it could potentially, make false learning where you've misunderstood a rule and you keep misapplying the rule, or you haven't seen how a team can be played in a different meta and that sort of stuff. So those are the sort of things that I would say are my main tips. And as well, like this is again, why I'm a massive advocate for tournaments, right? Because if you can go to a tournament, you commit to a day, you will get 4 games. And let's say you can only get 1 game in a week, right? But once a month, you play a tournament, which is like 4 rounds. Suddenly you've just doubled your exposure, right? Because normally a month you're getting 4 games, now you're getting 8 games. And because it's 4 games back to back, the learning and the sort of repetitive learning that you can have is so good. And the compound learning of being able to take a lesson from one game and immediately apply it without a week delay is so useful. So, and it gives you that exposure to how other people play. So that's probably what I would say are the main tips. Do you want to press on, Connor?
Absolutely, yeah. Let's jump into question 5. Where do you guys see Felgor post the Frenzy nerf?
So I think they're not anywhere near as weak as what a lot of people think they are. And the reason why I think this is so... I think basically they had a very simple play style before, and you could effectively run forwards and you were safe from positioning areas because you were just frenzy if you got it wrong. And then you go do your thing anyway, right? And shooting teams got punished like really heavily by this. But now, like, you have to be respectful of shooting teams. But you can still do it and you can still win. And so at the Turning Point Tactics tournament, I think it was second place day 1 and third place day 2 was Felgor. Like, they did well and they placed really well. And so, I think they are that they're still vying for it. I think the reason why people aren't seeing them like right now is because they're quite difficult to play. They are a melee horde, and melee hordes are generically harder to get to grips with. And the other alternatives of melee horde are currently better. So Chaos Cults, for instance, do what Felgor do, but better, and Galapox do what Felgor do, but better. So that's why I think people think that they're not that strong, because there's 2 teams that are doing a better job. But I still think they are good. So I think if you use TP1 to get into position and you're using Conceal effectively and the cover effectively, and use all their special rules, because they have so many little tricks on each of their models, which will really catch people off guard. If you do all those, then you'll be in a good place, I think. So that's kind of where I'm at. But do you have any thoughts on Felgor, Connor?
No, I mean, I say that no because I haven't really had any exposure to them, particularly like post nerf. So I don't think I'm in a good place to say I've thought about them, and they do still seem quite scary. They just don't seem ridiculous, which is how they were coming out the gate. So yeah, still a solid side. I'd agree with that.
Awesome stuff. Just a really quick reminder for people: if you are enjoying this and you think to yourself, I want to get one of my questions answered on the show, you can do that just by joining the Patreon. And as we said before, you get some specific benefits by doing that. Additionally, please, if you are liking this and enjoying it, do share it with your community. Make sure you share the love. I think hopefully we're reaching most people out now, and just by telling them about the channel, it helps grow and all that sort of stuff. So subscribe, like, share, comment. If you're disagreeing with what we're saying, or you think actually there's something we've missed, then do that as well, because that's really useful for us to get some immediate feedback that we can hopefully learn from, and people who are watching it can learn from it as well, which would be really useful, particularly if you only play one game a week, right? So this is the way to try and get people better at the game everywhere. All right, Connor, what's the next question?
Next question is more of a scenario for the question. Okay, so the scenario is it's ITD, big large central room, hatchway on both sides of the central room. Both players have 3 models, including a sniper / ranged threat. What is the optimal sequence to take this room? And also, please don't just say it depends and move on.
Yeah, which is like, because that is just like the answer is right. It's like, and it'd be so easy to be like, yeah, it depends. Press. So, I guess this is the sort of the what they're after in this question is, what are the things that you are considering to make it depend to then make the decision, right? So I've got a few questions that I would like ask or pose that sort of solve, like to set the scene, and then hopefully trying to give my logic, and hopefully it makes sense. With the caveat, right? Like with the caveat that obviously every team has a special ability that's going to make it not work, or something that there'll be something that means it doesn't necessarily count, right? But let me just try and give some generic principles that hopefully are useful for players to solve this problem set in ITD, because it is a very common problem set. So the first question I think you need to ask, right, is who has activation advantage, right? So can you just wait out their models and their activations, and then at the end, just move on to the point, right? Because if you can do that and they don't have an ability to stop you, that's usually optimal. So if you have that, do that, right? But the reverse also applies. If you know that they have activation advantage and they're just going to wait you out, well, you now need to do something to adapt your tactics to stop that. So the first question is, like, who has activation advantage? The second question is, if you guard, can you cover the whole objective and the room without the enemy getting onto it? And equally, is that guard likely to actually kill the model? And so the reason why I say this is, like, if you can put a guy on guard, but they can just move on to the objective in a single activation on conceal and be in cover, so you can't shoot them, well, then your guard is completely pointless, right? So there's no point in doing it. Or can they just move to get a toe on the other side and be obscured? So like, is your guard going to be worthwhile is the next question. The third question is, like, what is the mission that you're playing, right? Because they're all going to play completely differently. So, for instance, let's sort of talk loot. So loot, you want to take the objective early, and therefore, if you have a comms, you're going to comms buff early, open the door, move on to it, and loot straight away. Whereas, if you're doing, say, secure, you want to wait, right? You want to wait for your opponent to have already moved into the room, got onto the objective, and secured it. Then you want to use your comms on your guy, and then you want to move into the room and use your 3 APL to take it back from them and steal their captured objective straight away, or their secured objective. But let's say you're doing capture, well, you want to do it completely the reverse, right? You want to wait until everyone's moved, move your guy onto the objective, then move your comms and give that guy an APL, so that they are then stealing it from that way around, right? So that's kind of like the option. So those are the sort of the 3 questions. You know, who has activation advantage? Is your guard going to be effective? And what is the mission? To give some strategy then, like, let's say I have GA2 on loot. I'm just going to GA2 rush it, right? I don't care. I'm going to open the door. I'm going to move with one guy, whatever. I'm going to move the other guy in and take the objective. If they have guard, I'm going to move a guy through and create cover or block, and the other guy on conceal to move in and take it. So actually, you can use models for cover as well, right? So that's probably how I'll make it work. If it's secure and I have activation advantage, I'm just going to wait out my opponent and then use an extra APL to buff to steal it if I need to. And if I don't need to, then I won't. If it's secure and I don't have activation advantage, I'll try and set up that guard scenario first, then take the room. So hopefully I can, get on it, stay on it, and if they move on it, I get to shoot them first. Or potentially, I'm going to do like a capture plan where I'm going to move a guy on or use an icon or some sort of objective modification control, and then APL buff or whatever, so that they, even if they have 3 APL, they can't now move on and take it. They've got to try and kill me first. And that adds a bit of risk to them, and they're less likely to be able to steal it from me. Finally, if it's capture, that's not finally, it's got more after this actually. If it's capture and I have activation advantage, I'll wait out my opponent. And if they move on, I'll use a threat to then move in and kill them. Or move on, APL buff like some chaff and steal it, or move a threat on and APL buff it so that next turn it can then kill that guy and do some other stuff and move around the room, or present more of a threat wherever it's going to be, like that. And if it's capture and I don't have activation advantage, then I'll try to use non-reciprocal shooting guards to cover the objective. And if it's possible, or if it's just too unsafe and I can't do that, I'm probably just going to let them have it, right? And that sounds like a weird thing to do, but you need to try and find the rooms where you can commit resources and rooms where you just can't, and accept that there's going to be some places where you can't take all the objectives on one turn because you're just going to lose models. And if you do that, you're going to lose the game. So hopefully that's sort of answered that question. I quite like the scenario breakdown, actually. I think it's quite a good way of doing it. So hopefully we get some more of those in future as well. Any thoughts on that, Connor?
No, it's nice synopsis. One thing I will say, obviously, you haven't even talked about like faction-specific strategies. Like you did quite a broad, generic. Nothing wrong with that. Broad, generic idea. Like these are the ideas I'd take, but you then again have even more bespoke ideas depending on what roster you've brought. So I'm thinking along the lines of like, let's go legionary. You've got like a grizzly mark, so you could, if you had him forward deployed, then even if they get to within 2 to shoot you with their ugly guns, they're losing an attack dice that way. So you're actually quite survivable, especially if it's on the anointed, because he's got the 5-up feel no pain. What else? You got smoke grenades you could be using to try and clear out through that. You've got the Necron Cryptek one, so maybe you've got some tools in like the equipment toolbox that you could be utilizing to get through there. But I think in general, the principles you just applied are good.
Yeah, and so like I think that's one of the things that I'd say is like, hopefully those questions sort of answer that, because for instance, guard, can you use something to make it so that you can shoot them and it is reliable, or is there a way? I talk about APL modification. Well, if you can use the Grizzly Mark that you said from the Shrive Talon to make it an extra APL to do a mission action, then maybe they can't do that. Or as you said, can you put a 3 APL model on there that can't be killed, etc., etc. So yeah, I think ask those questions and then sort of and apply the context to try and solve it, and hopefully that gives some of the reasoning and context that I'm thinking about when I'm making those decisions. All right, Connor, I think we've got one last patron priority question to get through, and then we are done for the evening.
We do, and so our final question is: what will it take for you to do some hobby run?
That is another question.
Oh, so I misread that. It actually says, what are some key aspects of playing with Corsairs? What are some lesser-known strategies to use with them?
Yes, this is a great question. And obviously the answer is money. Oh, no, so that was the question before. So yeah, Corsairs. So Corsairs are like they're a great team. We talked a little bit about them earlier and their issues of reliability and the Birdman, that sort of stuff. But I'll try and cover some sort of generic points on them. I think hopefully it'll be useful. But so the first thing about Corsairs is that their survival, like their durability, is based on movement and positioning, right? Like they are a fragile team. And if you leave them in the open and try and like just tank damage, like they will not tank damage well. And you might think that, but they're 8 wounds, they've got 4-up save. It's like, yeah, I don't know what it is, but they just fold in half, and you only have 9 of them. So you don't have sufficient to actually be, like, that's not your way to win the game, right? So you have to be doing things like pop-tarting, you have to be doing things like non-reciprocal shooting, you have to be getting those angles where you're really working the team to their potential and using their movement to win you the game. And luckily, they have some benefits to that, right? They are the fastest team in the game with like Eldari agility, because they can move dash 11 inches and then do a mission action. And you can have a plunderous 3-inch dash at the start in this trap phase. So like this team can be moving sort of 14 inches And there's ways to make it even crazier with other options. But you can really be getting across the map very, very quickly, which is awesome. So make sure you're using that movement potential to position correctly, safely, and then use it where you need to. The other sort of thing I'd say about the team is that they are, in my opinion, one of the few teams that are like very, very good at applying damage whilst concurrently like playing the mission, and they do that through primarily their sort of light fingers tactical ploy, right? Because if you're doing an action-based primary, you probably want to be using that every turning point. So you can be moving and dashing and shooting someone or double shooting and then looting at the same time, right? So you can be killing like two people and looting, and then there's ways to do GA2 as well. So you can just be consistently playing the mission and doing these things. And so there's a way to do that as well, which I think is really useful, is you can use the leader and the Starstorm duelist as a combo. So the leader has an ability to do GA2 if they're within 3 inches of a model, right? And so if you comms buff, either the Starstorm duelist or the leader, generically I quite prefer the leader. But you can have an APL3 model that can move, dash, loot, and shoot, or charge, fight, shoot, and light fingers to pick up another objective. Or the other Pistolero can be shooting twice as well. So there's a potential for you to kill 4 models in an opening activation, which can be insanely deadly. If you have 3 AP on your leader, he charges, he fights, and then shoots someone, they kill 2. Your Starstorm duelist, move, dash, double shoot, kills 1 in each shooting action. That's 4 models down. That can be very, very brutal. But where I think the team plays better, personally, is the concurrent mission actions. And that's kind of like the mentality that I think you have to have when playing this team, is you want to always be scoring. So in that opening move, your leader, as 3 APL, let's say, is going to move, loot a point or secure a point and kill someone. Your Starstorm duelist is going to move, loot a point with light fingers and kill some people. And you're just doing this constant thing where you're scoring points, particularly your opponent's points, using your movement potential in their side of the map to deny them primary, elevate your own primary, and kill models concurrently. And if you're doing that, then that's like a absolutely awesome way to play the team, personally. A few other things I think might be of use to people is like the deadly ambush ability. You got to remember it only works on engage at the moment. Hopefully that changes soon, but that is how it works. But it does have uses. So things like behind the Octarius doors, you can put a guy on engage. If someone comes close, you can then dash through the door or charge through the door, and catch them. And the hatches and ITD as well, right? So you can put them next to a hatchway, and then you can move into range of the hatchway, and you can do some quite interesting stuff. Like, let's say you put your model 3 inches back from the hatchway. If a model wants to try and hatchway fight someone, they're going to move within range of your guy. You can then move into range of the hatch, and get an engagement range. They now can't hatchway fight the other guy. They've got to fight the guy in engagement range. And boom, suddenly you're now fighting the guy who's relentless power weapons rather than some like fusion guy, whatever. So just be aware of like those kind of moves that you can do. And they have like the best, I guess, ability to annoy an elite player ever, which is Freezing Grasp, which against any 3 APL models is absolutely fantastic, right? Because you basically take away their ability to dash and you take away their movement ability. And suddenly these really fast dynamic models are now really slow and often just aren't using their like ability, particularly if they're a melee model. Like someone like the Anointed, if you Freezing Grasp Anointed every turn, you will ruin a Legionary's life, right? Like that Legionary player will hate you so much because you're just constantly turning off one of their main threats as they move 4 inches up the board, and there's nothing they can do about it. So that can be quite good as well. So with that in mind, I personally think that the team plays really well with recon secondaries for that exact purpose of concurrently scoring whilst killing. And they want to be scoring early and scoring that primary early to then have synergy with their like faction tackle, like Flawless Raid, right? So just be aware people are going to expect that, right? So that their main option is to try and shut you down from scoring like that. And they want to try and stop you from getting a lead. But often it can be too difficult for players to stop, because if you win an issue on turning point 2 and you've set up that 3 APL and 3 mission action on something like loot, like you're killing probably 2 models and getting 2 VP. Like that is brutal, and it's probably the models that they don't want to be losing. So that's like a really good way of getting around it. A lot of people, I think, lean into the Seek and Destroy, and they lean into the Turning Point 1 Alpha Strike, and I think that's fine. Like Seek and Destroy is a good option. I think with the Alpha Strike though, I would personally threaten it more than I use it. Right, so like the Shade Runner, the model is so good for scoring. Like they'll do so much for you. They'll secure advantages. They'll, plant signal beacon, not signal beacon, sorry, transponders it now, plant transponders. They will loot objectives. They'll do all sorts of little stuff. And you're only 9 models, right? So if you do this big Alpha Strike and it doesn't pay off for you for whatever reason, then you're throwing away a model on quite slim odds of success, unless it's like ITD and there's a huge bunch of them. But they might not work out for you. So just be really careful and make sure you know the odds of what you're doing before you do it. Like if they have put their entire team in one blob and you think, I'm just going to kill everyone here, then sure, go for it. But just be aware that there's a high chance that won't happen. There are exceptions. ITD, if you can get like a whole Vet Guard team and you have outcasts on, sure, go nuts. But generically, maybe not. But there is ways that you can threaten that option without having to actually commit to it. So, for instance, you can order change and redeploy for 1 CP. So you can set your guys up so it looks like you're going to do it, and they're ready for it, and they think it's going to happen, and then you change it. And you can also do things like, I think the better Alpha Strike is the Shredder. You can move the Shredder to a different position to the other side of the board, and then move dash 9 inches, or even Plunderers, then move dash, and suddenly you're 12 inches out, getting an angle they didn't even think was possible, because the guys on the other side of the board. So you're using those as Alpha Strikes. I think it's a better way around it, personally. And I think finally, it would be remiss of me if I didn't mention like Warp Fold, because there are some like absolutely crazy options for movement potential with that. So particularly if you comms buff them, you can trade places with someone to move 6 inches. You can then move and dash a further like 11 inches, whatever, and then light fingers or use your 3rd APL, whatever, to loot or mission action, which is just insane movement potential. So that, I think, is the main bits that I would say are the key aspects of playing with Corsairs. Enjoy all parts of them. Play a bit of Seek and Destroy, play a bit of Recon. But generically, if you're always scoring whilst killing, you're going to be doing well, and you can do that with both Recon or with Seek and Destroy. But their main weakness is their reliability, and I think Recon means that you're scoring generically with like guaranteed actions, whereas Seek and Destroy, it can be swingy, but just be aware of that going forwards. Any thoughts on Corsairs, Connor? Do you think I've covered all of that?
No, you definitely. I mean, one thing I will add. So I got to talk to Gin Sheep actually at our tournament. He's a notorious Corsairs player from Bristol. And I think you alluded to this earlier, and this is something that Gin Sheep definitely mentioned. One of the key aspects of playing as Corsairs is that you will only ever get a 50% win ratio. You're going to tournaments and it'll be 2-2. That is what it is. So just take that on board.
Yeah, and it's the dice, man. Like, and it is a roller coaster.
It is
like,
so unreliable.
I've had it like so, because a lot of their damage is like melee damage as well, and so you'll go in with like your power weapons and you go, I'm going to absolutely kill this guy. I'm relentless. I'm lethal 5, blah, and they just go, yeah, I've just rolled really badly and I'm dead. And so, and he's like your best option, right? Like, it's a relentless melee guy, and even he can swing. And so, like, there's certain teams that can just like take you apart. So, as I said, you really want to make sure you're making the most out of those scoring whilst killing options. So, but yeah, otherwise, you're guaranteed to win 50%, which is good, perfectly balanced, as all things should be. All right, then. I think that has brought us to the end of this episode. So hopefully you found something new or useful while listening. And if you did, As we said, throwing us a like would be greatly appreciated, but please share it amongst your community and make sure everyone gets to hear about what we're saying here and get the value from it. If you want to make sure you don't miss an episode, make sure you hit that subscribe button, drop the little bell as well so you get a notification as soon as the next episode drops. And if you can't wait and you do want early access, we do have a Patreon where you get exclusive access to all of our content ahead of time. As always, we'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback. So drop a comment below and we'll get right to you. Thank you so much for listening. I'm your host Ryan, this has been Turning Point Tactics, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.